Mark Pope has finally decided to open up to Big Blue Nation, which is great, but his answers don't really move the needle for this upcoming season, like, at all.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of the show, we're going to be talking about an overseas prospect that Kentucky could add as a backup five. But first, we've got to get to Mark Pope addressing Big Blue Nation finally. He wanted us to give him questions, and we sure did. And he gave some answers, and I like the fact that he did it, but I don't necessarily know if they move the needle. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind you guys out there that we are free and available on all platforms. Subscribe wherever you are tuned in. Let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so Mark Pope has decided to open up to Big Blue Nation finally. He put out on Twitter and Instagram a video saying that he wanted us to give him questions, and he would do his best to answer as many of them as possible. And the replies on Twitter, at the very least, were abhorrent. I think most of them were. I went scrolling through a couple of different times, and a lot of you asked him some very interesting questions that I think he probably has no interest or business answering. But he did pick a few different questions to answer that I found interesting. And I'll just go ahead and say off the top here, I like the fact that Mark Pope did this. I like the fact that in this offseason of chaos, he decided to sit down and actually have a conversation with the fans and explain at least a little bit, in his opinion, what's going on. In reality, this was a PR move. This was probably not his decision to make. This was probably the university, I don't know who, sitting him down and saying, hey, you're going to go and do this. The fan base is willing to burn down the entire city of Lexington right now, just based on how things are going this offseason. This was him trying to stabilize perception. That's what the athletic department is doing here. And while I liked the fact that they did it, and there is some amount of transparency on the surface here, it doesn't really move the needle that much for me. And frankly, I don't really think it should move the needle for you. And we'll get into the questions here in just a minute, but I want to reiterate again, when Mark Pope is answering these questions that I'm about to read, he is trying to do a few things. The athletic department, or him, I'm guessing it's the athletic department, is trying to do a few things. They're projecting control, they are reframing negatives as positives, and they are trying to keep the energy as high as possible around the roster, individual, the players within the locker room that are hearing this and seeing this. They're trying to keep the energy high with them, and they're doing their best to try and turn us to a positive direction here as we wade deeper into the summer. It is textbook PR strategy, and again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but you need to understand that is what is happening here. This is not like we're having a come to Jesus moment and we're all sitting here excited about what's going on. This is them trying to flip a negative as best as they possibly can because things are objectively not as good as we would like them to be, at least in terms of a perception standpoint and in terms of an emotional standpoint. That's actually something I said on yesterday's show when we talked about Marcio Santos, who has already committed to LSU. It's not the best time to whiff on a prospect, but in reality, it was a kid that we didn't want to throw the money at, but it's just an awful time for it to happen because of all of the different whiffs and missed recruitments that have kind of piled up until this point. So this is them doing damage control effectively. The first question, and this is a brutal one, that Kyle Robertson asked on Twitter to Mark Pope. Is Kentucky being used by players to leverage for more NIL money? And Mark Pope, in his video reply on Twitter and Instagram, said this: yes, we're the biggest brand in basketball. And that is all he said. That's kind of all you need to hear, basically. And he gives a strong response. It's not denying it. It's not trying to dance around it here. He leans into it. He knows people, players, agents are going to try and screw with Kentucky a little bit because they know the Cats got money and they know they can use it as leverage for another place that they may really want to go instead of play with Pope because right now he's not doing a great job bringing these kids home. It flips a potential negative here into a positive. This is a PR win, I think, for Kentucky. At HS Top Recruiting asked him, what kind of changes are being made to recruiting? You have to see a problem with 14 top 20 kids visiting and you landing none. What are the changes? And Pope said, well, first, I'd like to get all 20 kids to visit our campus. That's a major win, and there's no limit. Okay. Second, I'd like to land a few. No crap. Third, this year we were chasing a generational talent and we fell a little short, but we weren't sitting on their hands. Yes, you were, by the way. We put together a roster that we are all going to love watching them crush it in Rupp Arena. The answer shifts here. Instead of addressing the concern, which is his ability to close, he reframes it. And again, I guarantee you, this was not his decision to reformulate the response like this. Talking about getting 20 kids to visit here as a major win doesn't land with me, and it shouldn't land with the fan base because we only care about one thing: commitments. Who is coming to play for Kentucky? Not visits. I don't care about your positive outlook on trying to get more kids to visit. I want to see you land a kid. I want to see you get a 5-star prospect that doesn't already play in the state of Kentucky, that doesn't already have ties here, that you can pull out of state and get to come play for you. That's the only thing I care about. It is an effective spin on its face, but it does not solve literally anything. Kentucky's not finishing the job. Mark Pope is still whiff man. That is the reality. So again, while I appreciate him answering the question, it's not really doing anything for me, at least in my opinion. Kevin Feltner asks him, another concern I have is we are not addressing the 5 spot. Also, Malachi Moreno is on the precipice of the first round. If you have not seen over the last several days, news broke Malachi Moreno is working out with the New York Knicks, and he is projected, at least by one outlet, to go at the very end of the first round to New York. This doesn't concern me at all. It's the reason why we haven't talked about it. It's just the draft process. It's reality. These things are going to happen. You're okay. I'm okay. He's okay. And this was the response that Pope gave to, it's not even a question. It's just Kevin saying, I'm concerned you're not doing enough at the center spot, and Malachi might be gone. Pope says, Malachi Moreno is the number one priority in the front court going into this portal season. We think that he is going to be the best center in all of college basketball next year at Kentucky. He's also going through the draft process. He had a great workout last night for an NBA team. Next week, he's heading to the Combine, and we're supporting him every step of the way. This is the place where basketball dreams come true. Malachi has 2 of those dreams. He's dreaming of hanging a banner at Kentucky, and he's dreaming of playing in the NBA. And so we are supporting him chasing both of those. At the same time, we're working hard in the portal right now to shore up this 5 spot. We're going to have an unbelievable crew at the center position. It's the same thing here. Answer around Malachi Moreno is balanced. You get the NBA dream, the support emotionally, which any normal fan would listen to that and say, have some sort of empathy towards that and understanding just based on Kentucky's recent history. The kid wants to go to the league. This is the place to do that. That's so sweet. We support him. He expresses confidence in Moreno, says that he's going to be the best player in his mind, and he mentions the portal there at the very end. But again, it's a very non-committal answer to a response that demands a more serious answer at this point. There's no real clarity. We have absolutely no idea who Kentucky's going after. There's not a good enough player in the transfer portal right now that you and I are aware of that Kentucky is either talking to, aware of, pursuing anything. We don't know what they're going to do at the 5, and it kind of sounds like if you're given this answer on May 7th, you don't really know exactly what you're going to do either. You're just trying to find an answer. The takeaway here for me is not reassurance that everything's going to be okay at the center spot. It's uncertainty, which is the only thing we have known for the last 2 months. So again, I appreciate Mark Pope answering these questions. What does this do for me as a fan? This does not solve anything. This does not solve the problem. And we'll talk a little bit about it after we get through all the questions. But at this point, I don't care what Mark Pope has to say, positively or negatively. I want to see action. I want to see motion. I want to see things happen. And therefore, I will base my judgment on him as a coach off of that. Because right now, you have 2 double-digit loss seasons. You got blown out in the round of 32, and you're losing kids left and right that, frankly, should have been coming to Kentucky. And had there been a different coach in your spot, more than likely, they would have been able to get him. TJ Altenberger would have been able to get somebody like Donnie Freeman to come play for him. Somebody like Bruce Pearl would have been able to get some of these high-profile 5-star kids to come play for him. You have whiffed on so many different big-time names. At this point, I want to see the wins. I don't care about what you have to say. I want to see the wins. I will reiterate for maybe a 4th or 5th time. Great that he's talking about this. We'll get to more of the questions, one of which I actually loved in a moment. Does not move me. Does not move me whatsoever. We'll continue to break this one down here in just a moment. Before we do it, though, tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are rolling along. Every single possession matters here, and if you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started, because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I really like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed, whether you're looking at player props or just following your favorite stars. It adds another level of excitement to every single game. And then also the app's super easy to navigate, makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. You can head to FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel. Play your game. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of the show, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. 20,000 of you already subscribed to the YouTube channel. Wherever you are watching or listening, would love it if you did so. Subscribe, join up. And if you want to join the Everydayer Club, $5 a month or $50 a year, get a Locked On Kentucky with no ads, no interruptions. You can also join the Locked On Podcast Network Discord server, which has a few thousand of us in there at this point, talking shop, talking ball. You can find the link in the description or go to lockedonkentucky.supercast to learn more about that. Okay, so I've got a few more questions here from Mark Pope. He only answered 6, but he did say he's going to answer more. I did drop a question on Twitter. I mean, I have absolutely no... I have no reason to believe he's going to answer my question because it's not even really it's not really an important one. I just want to know what he thinks about Cam Williams at the 3. And I'd like to get a serious answer about that. But Zach Smith asks him on Twitter, would you come to our wedding? And Pope said, Zach, I don't know if I can make the wedding, but I have had the opportunity to officiate 3 of my former players' weddings, which has been incredible. I do want to say best wishes to you and Grace on this incredible day. I'm going to get a little bit more into what I think about some of the humanizing elements of this whole debacle here later on in the show. But I do want to say that I appreciate this from Pope, and it seems like out of all of this feels like a genuine, sincere thing, and I like it. I like the fact that this was either picked by the athletic department for him to answer, or he probably went through and said, hey, I want to answer that, because we have seen Pope give so much care and attention to the community. This feels authentic, and even if it's not, I still like it. The biggest question, or my favorite question that I wanted to get to here on the show, one where I actually feel like I had something answered. Like, this feels like I have something to hold on to as a fan moving forward, is a question that 2 different people actually asked, at the KY Game Day and at Matt Sack R2NG. Both of them asked, which, by the way, shout out, we're up to no good. What is your favorite aspect of Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins' game? How do we feel about the backcourt at the University of Kentucky? And this is what Mark Pope said. One of the top priorities for us going into the portal was finding creators. And these are 2 of the elite creators in all of college basketball. They are going to form a dynamic duo for Kentucky basketball. They are both over 30% assist rate. There's only currently one other roster in the entire country with 2 players over a 30% assist rate. This is going to be awesome. In case you are wondering, the only other team that had 2 players with over a 30% assist rate in college basketball a season ago was UConn. The 2 players, I believe, were Demery and Malachi Smith off the bench. This answer, we are talking actual basketball, is the strongest response that he has given, and it might end up being the strongest response he gives, period. It is specific, it is measurable, and it outlines an actual identity for this team moving forward. Kentucky wants creators. They want guys who can create in isolation for themselves and make for others consistently. It sounds like an actual plan with a comparison point to another team that has had a lot of success with the same type of backcourt. This is the kind of answer that Mark Pope can give that helps move perception a little bit. He's talking about what he has to work with, not what he's whiffed on, not what he doesn't have. This is talking about what Mark Pope has at his disposal, and he seems excited about it. And frankly, this is another positive aspect of the Diallo-Wilkins backcourt that I am excited about. Both of these guys can play the point. Kentucky wanted kids that could play point guard in case one of them went down. He's probably not going to say that, but it's something that you and I have complained about. It's something that the entire fan base has said. We need more depth at point guard, and they got 3 answers there. Zoom, Wilkins, and Mason Williams. And shoot, Jerome Morton, if you need him to, could probably play point guard. This is the best question. Full stop. And I'm glad that Matt Sack in the KY Game Day asked this. And my question on Twitter, if Pope does choose to answer it, which would be awesome if he did, is kind of in the same vein. What do you think about the small forward position? Is Cam Williams ready to take that next step as a starter? Is he ready to grow into that role? More conversations about what Kentucky has to work with and less about what they've whiffed on, I think is important, because if you are going to try and change perception, don't dwell on the unknown. Don't dwell on the negative. Let's talk about what we got. We got a former McDonald's All-American at point guard. We got a kid that averaged almost 18 a game at Furman. We got, probably starting at small forward, a former top 35 prospect that's 6'9". At power forward, we've got Usman Njai, an international prospect that's probably going to be ready to make a trip to the NBA after one season at UK. And then we have another All-American center who's already spent a year here and looked great in the time that he played. All of this we should be excited about. One of you commented yesterday and said that Zoom Diallo wasn't an All-American. He was. He was a McDonald's All-American in high school. The last question that Mark Pope was asked was by Steph Palmer, and she just simply said, "Where have you been?" And he said, "I was in Tel Aviv, Ljubljana, Milan, Cremona, as well as 5 or 6 cities in the States, but I am so happy to be back in Lexington." There was a reason that Mark Pope was in Ljubljana, actually, and we'll get to that later. But I do want to close with this before we talk about the reason why Pope was in Ljubljana, more than likely. The questions about where he's been, the travel, the wedding, it's humanizing. It's something that you will do as a PR tactic or strategy to kind of round out a rough situation. You will deflect as much as you can away from the problems. You will flip things. You will rephrase things to make them sound positive. I can believe Pope is being authentic when he answers these questions. It does not change the fact that, again, this is something you're going to see when things go bad and the athletic department says we've got to make a statement. If Pope was the one who decided we need to talk to the fans, we need to say something that shows awareness, that shows a desire to want to please this fan base, which I can really appreciate and respect, it shows how much he cares. So if that's the case, and I would assume that he wouldn't just go along with this and say, well, I don't want to talk to him. My guess is that he was probably fired up about it. I can appreciate that. I can respect it. It was a good PR decision. He made himself available. And it helps a little bit, but it's not what people care about right now. The answers themselves don't change anything in this moment. When it comes to the biggest concerns, the answers were reframed, softened, or they were pushed a little bit into the future. Kentucky fans are moving past that right now. And the message at this point, it's not even about messaging anymore. It's more so about Kentucky needs results. And Justin Rollins said this on Twitter, and I'll leave it at this. This isn't about winning the PR battle. This is about wins and losses. Go out there and win. And then I'll feel a little bit better about it. Thank you for talking. Thank you, sincerely. Let's see you win. There's a player Kentucky could potentially add to their roster here as a backup 5 that I would be pretty excited about. We'll talk about him in just a moment. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure is on and you need the right hire, it's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. So skills, experience, location. So you are not just trying to stumble across the right candidate or them stumbling across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute or so that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed-sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's wrap up today's episode of the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We've talked about the PR stuff. Again, I want to reiterate this because I'm probably going to get some pushback on it. I like the fact that he did it. I like the fact that this was a move made by the university or himself that sort of brings back a human element into this. And if it's not like at worst, if it's not like a sobering moment for us as fans to be like, this is just college ball, like take a little bit of the pressure off for a moment. Like that should be something that we at least consider, but also some of the answers weren't rooted in reality. Right now, I care about wins. And he's got a potential win here coming up. If Kentucky actually does reach out, this is coming from Big Blue Dylan on Twitter, at Big Blue Dylan, who at the moment is doing pretty good work over there on Twitter, breaking down different things that are going on in terms of what Kentucky's actually doing on the recruiting trail. Because right now we're not getting a ton of that from other sources. And there's an overseas player that Kentucky or Mark Pope definitely was taking a look at in Ljubljana. And that is France. How do I even say that? It is French forward, I should say, Cameron Houindo. 6'9", 245-pound power forward / center. According to Big Blue Dylan, who obviously noted that Mark Pope confirmed today that he was in Ljubljana, Slovenia, while recently overseas. Big Blue Dylan notes it seems almost certain that he was there visiting French power forward Cameron Houindo, who is currently playing there. He had heard, Dylan had, that Kentucky would be interested a few weeks back, and he said, I was told there was a team who had been perceived as the favorite up until this point, until they recently went another direction with their 4/5 spot, potentially opening up a real shot for Kentucky to swoop in. This is one to watch. This kid is versatile. He is young. He's only 18. He was born in 2008, which is crazy. And he's been, at least in 2025, he'd been playing really good ball. In the span of a week, he was named the MVP of the Next Gen EuroLeague tournament in Ulm and the MVP of Basketball Without Borders camp in Los Angeles, which, by the way, BWB is arguably the most prestigious NBA camp in the world. And at BWB, he didn't really get a ton of run. They just didn't play him a ton in the 5 games he was there. But in the Next Gen EuroLeague tournament, he averaged 22 points and 7.5 boards a game on pretty decent efficiency. This is a kid that can stretch the floor, but more importantly, is 245 freaking pounds at your power forward spot at 18. I would say that he's less raw than maybe Ousmane Ndiaye, but he has a lower ceiling than Ousmane Ndiaye. But man, is he another type of player similar to Ryan Hampton, who we've been talking about recently, a tough shot taker and a tough shot maker. In several games with the FIBA U18 Eurobasket team, he shot 43.2% from the floor. He only took 4 threes throughout the entire time that he was playing with them, but he averaged 5 rebounds, 1 assist, a little over half a steal, 1.4 blocks per game. He was pretty solid overall, statistically, 7.6 points, 5 boards, 1 assist. And during, I believe, the EuroLeague tournament, Next Gen EuroLeague tournament, he was averaging like 2 stocks a game collectively between steals and blocks. And right there, he's actually averaging right there at 2 stocks a game. So the kid's got some tools defensively. He's young. He's athletic. He can handle the ball. He's another skilled Euro player that Kentucky could add to their roster. Now, the question, and I saw some people talking about this on Twitter, and this, again, we'll get into this if Kentucky actually reaches out to him, like actually gets the ball rolling here. But the question that you do have to ask, is this another Andrea Jelovic? Or is this somebody that can provide you a little bit more oomph that you're looking for? Is he just going to be another Euro player that comes in and out of college and nobody really thinks about? Or is he somebody like an Andrea Stojakovic, who was born here in the States? But you get what I mean. There are Euro-type players that come in and make a serious impact on a legitimately good quality team. Cameron Houindo at 6'9", 245 could be one of those guys that plays between the 4 and the 5, is Kentucky's backup 5. And this reiterates to me, especially given Pope's answer, it reiterates to me that they are going all in on Malachi Moreno as being a good player. I think he was being honest about that when he said, we expect him to be one of the best centers in college ball next season, or the best. I assume he believes it, and he kind of has to be at this point. So a lot is weighing on Moreno's shoulders if he does return, and I expect him to. But somebody like Houindo could sort of, again, talk about players like McBride, floor elevators. They are keeping you from completely falling off the face of the earth whenever you do start actually playing ball with whatever team Kentucky ends up constructing. Last thing I want to say here today, and I'm sure you guys will have questions and thoughts in the comments. The last thing I want to say here today, there was a clip that was taken a little bit out of context, and maybe I didn't fully explain myself, that was posted to social media from this show. A lot of people didn't like it when I said Kentucky doesn't need to add anything to this roster other than a backup 5. When it comes to needing to compete for the SEC and a national championship, yeah, you need to add a star. You need to add a Euro stud that can go out there and be the leader for next year's team. You need an uber-talented player that comes out of nowhere that you can drop a bunch of money on. You need a player like that. What I was trying to say is, in terms of depth at each position, Kentucky has players at every position, basically, except for center. So it was simply in terms of finishing the roster, in terms of depth, that was the only thing I was saying, is that they only need a 5. They don't need another shooting guard. They don't need another this. They have players. They have a 2 deep at every other spot. Now, again, do they need a better starter at small forward if they want to be competing for a title? Yeah, they absolutely freaking do. I was just saying in terms of depth is all I was trying to say. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's episode of the show. You can follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnUK, follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God bless, and go Cats.